Welcome to Discovering. Well, the ice is here and so are the fish. Tonight, it's an evening on a small backwoods lake and some non-stop bluegill action.
Normally at this time of year it's always nice because this is what we do, you know, we come out and fish and have fun catching panfish, bluegills and that.
Then we'll get the scoop on a documentary being produced in an effort to help save the camps of the Ottawa.
I am producing a documentary about the hunting camps in the Ottawa National Forest that have to be removed.
That's all tonight, right here on Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
When you talk about fishing here in the UP, you can't help but think about walleye, trout, and salmon on the Great Lakes. But hitting the ice on a small backwoods lake for panfish is a UP pastime that's hard to beat. I once again found myself on the water, or on the ice, with Sam and Jack. Would my luck change this time out? I'll admit I was a bit nervous about heading out onto a frozen lake in the middle of nowhere with someone who was already convinced I was the bringer of bad luck. I had pictures of myself floating on a chunk of ice cut away from the rest of the lake, or being shoved down an ice hole. Jack wouldn't do that. About 20 seconds into it, all my fears and my bad luck disappeared.
Oh, perch. See them rising up. Two of them. That ain't too little. It's a bluegill. Two. That's why it wasn't too little. A lot of times when we fish in deeper water, it's tough to get your line to go down, especially if you're not inside of the shack because the wind is blowing and that. So instead of putting a sinker above it, we put another jig above it to help weight it down. You put one jig on the bottom, one jig above it, and then a lot of times when you're in the deeper water, they'll bite your sinker, you know, and you'll be getting a lot of hits and you can't hook anything. It's because they're actually biting your sinker. They're not biting your line, your bait. So this way it eliminates that. Your sinker is another hook. And that way, if they're biting your weight to help bring you down, it's your second hook. So it kind of is and it's a lot easier too. You have two different colors down there, two different setups,
two different depths.
Two different depths. Yeah, you're giving a little better presentation. You know, sometimes they prefer one lure only. Sometimes they'll eat both. Depends how they're feeding for the day, but it seems to make it a lot better than putting sinkers on and getting them hitting on your sinkers. About as big as your hand, that's about normal, you know. You don't get ice fishing till December, usually on the inland lakes. This year, you know, the big lake has got ice on it. We fished last week on Little Beatty Knock on 5-6 inches of ice, and I mean, I never remember seeing ice there at this time of year in my life. But normally at this time of year it's always nice, because this is what we do, you know, we come out and fish and have fun catching panfish, bluegills and that on inland lakes all over different places we go. And come, you know, later on in the year is when we spend a lot of our time fishing on the Great Lakes for walleyes and whitefish, northerns, trout, depends where you're going. But you know, this time of the year is always fun, you know, to have a good time catching a bunch of bluegills and perch, whatever you can get on these inland lakes. It breaks up the winter anyhow, you know. Yep. Getting a little bit better.
It's funny to get it wrapped in the card.
Most of these fish are suspended 4 to 5 feet from the bottom, and you're set up to fish normally. You know, most people's thinking is we're going to fish 6 or 8 inches off the bottom. You do that, you're dropping past the fish and you're fishing below them. The only hope you have is that when you're dropping down that one picks it up on the way down. With this, you can see that fish, you know, where he is in the water column, and then you can target him directly where he's at. You know, if he's 25 feet of water and the fish is 14 feet off the bottom, you can see it on here. You watch your lure go right down to the same level as your fish is at. Put a direct target on him that way, you know, I mean, and without that, you're just fishing blind, you're guessing. It's a big difference in whether you're catching fish or just fishing for fish.
You can see my jig when I'm moving it up and down like that, going up and down. That's a fish right there. And he's more in the center of the cone. You can tell by the color. If it's red, in fact, he's looking at it right now. If you come up to it, I chased him away just to hit him in the head. But depending on the color, if it's green, he's further away from the center of the cone that's in the water. As it turns orange, he's getting closer, and red is in the center of the cone. And that's kind of how you tell where that fish is in relation to your jig, because your jig is in the center of the cone too. There's a couple of them down there. Those lines are other fish down there.
As long as it reads quickly,
yeah.
You move your
so you're
line.
looking at real time.
Yeah, you move your line, you need to see that line move, you know, it goes up, you need to see it. It's falling, you need to see it. And then you can see what that fish does, you know, according to what you do. If you're jigging too fast and he swims away, you need to slow down. If you slow down and they're interested, that's what the key is for the day. Otherwise, maybe more aggressive or taking it away from him. It's all a game. See this one coming? He's coming right at it. He's almost there. He should be biting. There he is. Just that easy.
Oh, that's a good one too. Fun fish.
Pretty interesting when you can watch the fish,
right,
and their behavior. Comes another one.
Looks like the bigger ones are.
The behavior of what they do in relationship to what you do. That's the whole game changer of this, you know, is to know where the fish is in the water column and know how to react to what, or how they react to what you do. It's the same as in the summertime, you know, when you're looking for thermoclines or looking at where fish are in a water column. Salmon fishing, you can be fishing 200 feet of water, but you're only fishing 45 or 50 feet down. You have to know a little bit about what you're fishing, I guess, too, but if you don't know how deep in the water column the fish are, it's pretty hard to target something that you're just guessing. The rod is whatever somebody prefers, you know, I mean, some days this one's got like a 4-pound test, or no, I've got 6 pound test on here. You can, when they're not being fussy like they were tonight, they were biting pretty good, you know, it's pretty steady. You can use a heavier line and a heavier rod. If you hook a bigger fish, you can fight them good, but on the end, you know, you've still got the spring tip bobber. Super ultralight, I mean, there's nothing to it. Flex is real easy. Otherwise, if they're being more stubborn and fussy, they don't want to fight as good, we go to something more lightweight. 2 pound test line, also spring tip bobber on it. Basically the same exact setup, lighter rod though.
You get in there with that spring bobber and fishing crappie. Usually you see my jig's got a little bit of a pull on that. But when you get into a crappie, you'll actually see that bobber. They'll grab it, pick it up, and bring it up, and it'll pop up a little bit. So you know something grabbed it. And then you can jerk on that too. These are pretty lightweight rods. If you were getting into walleye and bass, this would not be the rod you would use for that. You can catch them on here, but you're going to earn it. A lot of fun. You know, it might take you 10 minutes to get one in. And then I only run about 3 pound tests.
I can see that. Yeah.
To those of us who live here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, there is no other place like it. The forests, the rivers, the lakes big and small, they are all part of what makes the UP so special. But it's more than just a collection of beautiful landmarks. It's a way of life. And there are things we hold sacred in our special way of life. Things like hunting, fishing, and trapping. And on that long list of things we hold very dear are camps. A camp is a special place. It's where we get together year after year for deer season. It's the place where your kids grew up and learned how to be caretakers of the outdoors. And about family. All that being said, when I heard about a documentary being produced about the camps of the Ottawa, I felt the need to pass it on.
I am producing a documentary about the hunting camps in the Ottawa National Forest that have to be removed by January 1st, 2017. I've wanted to make this documentary for a few years now. I've wanted to make a documentary since I graduated from college and got my degree in film and video production. I didn't know what, and then when I realized what and realized, you know, I'm going to be losing my camp, my dad's camp, I found the perfect opportunity for a documentary. They have to be removed because they're on National Forest land. They weren't originally on National Forest land. The land that they're on was owned by UPCO, the UP Power Company, and they sold it to a holding company, actually the Trust for Public Land, back in 1991-92, who then in turn turned it over, sold it to the National Forest. And part of that sale, the camp leaseholders were given 25-year leases, and in that 25 years they have to have their camps removed. So this was back in 1992, so they have to be out by 2017.
Pete and I are the old guys now. We're the old guys at camp. But you know what? I'd love to see my sons be the old guys in here someday. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen, I don't think.
All over the place. You better watch out, man.
The camps are located in the Ottawa National Forest. The majority of them are located on the branches of the Ontonagon River, the Middle Branch, the South Branch, and the West Branch. When the National Forest bought the land, they wanted to preserve and protect the Ontonagon River corridors that were actually named Wild and Scenic back in 1991, I believe it was. That kind of all happened around the same time. Growing up, I had heard that it was part of the reason that they couldn't keep the camps was because of the National Wild and Scenic River Act, and that these rivers were designated wild and scenic. A lot of the leaseholders think that's why they're not allowed to keep their camps, is because of that. But it's more so because of that they are on National Forest land. They don't lease the land, really. They just lease like the piece that the camp is on. So, I mean, the general public can come right through here. I mean, they're not allowed to stop the general public from accessing the river, from accessing this land. The only thing is, you know, they can lock their doors. They own the structure, and that's it. When I talked to the Forest Service, they said that they're not in the business of leasing land. It's a national policy that the Forest Service can't lease land. It was part of the agreement in the purchase of the land that the Forest Service had to honor the 25-year leases with no intention of renewing them.
Until he stood in front of a mirror.
Yeah.
The oldest dated camps are kind of in the 50s, I think, like 59, 58 is the oldest camp. Our camp was built in 1987, I believe it was. So yeah, you have all these leaseholders that have had their camps for a couple generations now, and when they actually signed that last contract 22 and a half years ago now, they didn't really have a choice in signing that contract. It was either sign that 25-year lease and have it removed or remove it right away. After the years passed, they realized that it's now their sons, their grandchildren that are enjoying these camps, and then they want that tradition to stay. I mean, some of the leaseholders I talked to, they've been ranging in age from 30 to 70, and so they've had their grandkids or their kids, and just realize that their kids and grandkids aren't going to be able to have the same traditions that they've had growing up out here at these hunting camps. Part of the reason of doing this documentary is to try to find a solution to keep these camps. I'm not into politics at all. I'm not. The only way I really know how to do anything is with film, with video. That's my passion. And I'm hoping by telling this story, I can open more eyes to it and show it to lawmakers and show it to the public and see if we can come to some sort of an agreement, or they can come up with a special use permit of some sorts to allow these camps to stay out here. So that's one of the purposes of the documentary, is to try to find a solution. And if that doesn't work, all in all, I just want to tell the stories. There's so many traditions and so many stories at these hunting camps that I think they need to be preserved and their stories told. When the Forest Service took over the land, there was 155 camps in the Ottawa. I seen a list from 1999, and I think I counted 126 camps. When I talked to the Forest Service earlier this year about this documentary, there was 104 camps left, and currently there's 102 camps left in the Ottawa. So roughly a third of the camps have been removed already. So I'm hoping nobody's in a hurry to remove their camps, and we can, try to save the last 102 camps that are out here. One of the reasons for this documentary, and I have such passion for it, is because my family has a camp. My dad built a camp when I was about 5 years old on the Middle Branch, about 3 miles north of Bruce Crossing. And I spent a lot of time there as a kid. I have a lot of memories that made out there. I remember when he was building it. I remember when the sauna went up, playing out in the woods. My dad is a logger, so he taught me all the trees in the woods. We went hiking a lot. He taught me to play poker at camp. I had so much fun down there, and I continue to have fun down there. I want to keep my camp, and I'd like to be able to go out there for years to come. I don't think that if we tear it down that I'll go pitch tent out there. When I talked to the Forest Service, they said they're not going to keep us off the land. We can hike out there and pitch tent and spend the night, but I live in the heart of the Ottawa National Forest, so I can pitch tent in my backyard too if I wanted to, but it's just the location. And I think that's part of a lot of the camps, is the location. You hear the river flowing right here. It's just a great sound. It's so peaceful and relaxing. And a lot of them being on the river, they have that to wake up to. And it's just, I think it's the location that many of the leaseholders are attached to, not just the structure, but it's the memories that they made there and the spot that they're in.
That's the one time every one of my brothers, every one of my brother-in-laws, they were all here. That was a neat, wonderful weekend.
What's happening with these leases right now, I think they want to put this, the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, the purpose of the whole thing is to put land away so that it will be here for future generations, for all people to enjoy. and for recreation and for education and people to learn and cherish the woods and the outdoors. But I think by putting this into a wilderness area, the point is being missed. Because once this area, these camps are gone and the area is bermed off and there's no motorized vehicles allowed in here, the only people who are going to be able to see this area and come in here are those who are young enough and fit enough to ride a bike or snowshoe or walk in here. And people who have some kind of physical disability or are older or not fit enough are discriminated against and excluded from being able to come in here. And that's not good. The other thing that I think is wrong is that when there's a wilderness area, you get people from outside the area who think it's neat to be able to come in here and hike in here for a day and take some pictures, and that's their wilderness experience. But it isn't. That's not teaching someone to love the environment, how to care for the environment. It's not spending days here learning how animals interact. It's not days here being able to have a kid crawling around on the river with you, finding crawdads and looking under rocks and learning about how insects hatch, how trout eat, what their habitat's like, to watch a kingfisher fishing on the river, to watch eagles swim up and down here. You have to spend time here to learn to love the woods and to understand nature. Nature has so much to teach us, and the environment has so much to teach us. Often us humans think that we're above that and we're special and that we control nature and we control those things, but we don't. We're a part of those things. They're a part of us. And my daughters have benefited so much from being able to live here as they grew up for a week at a time, many times. And they're not the only ones. I was thinking the other day, there are over 50 children who have spent significant time just at this camp and getting an education about the outdoors and the environment and learning to love it and cherish it and live with it, not control it and live against it. And that's what concerns me about taking these camps away and putting the land away, is that we're removing that opportunity for all these kids to grow up having an experience and future generations to have a true wilderness experience because these camps are here, not because they're gone.
Well, that's it for tonight. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week right here on Discovering.